Good morning, Geauga County, Lake County, all northeastern Ohio, and every place around the world where you are streaming live to Rumble, Facebook, or YouTube. The voice of Geauga. This morning I have with me Jonathan Broadbent and
Good morning, all.
Mr. Judge Engler is a special guest today, candidate for appeals court judge. I always forget the district. Is that 14th?
11th.
11th. There you
11th.
go. 11th. I mix that up with the congressional district for Mr. Dave Joyce. And so, in any case, we've got a great program coming up. I'm looking forward to getting into talking about the courts, the appeal court. I actually have a case that has been going through the court system right now, and I'm experiencing the fun of going through the court system. But with that said, I wanted to reach out to the sheriff's department. I was talking to some of the deputies in the sheriff's department yesterday, and apparently a number of deputies in the sheriff's department or the sheriff's department listens to this program. So a shout out to all the deputy sheriffs and sheriff running around Geauga County, keeping us all safe and
Yep.
and doing all
Thanks
the
for
great
what you
things
do.
that they do. And I love the fact that we've got a detention center there for illegal aliens. But I was corrected yesterday by one of the deputies because we have a sponsor, Red Eft Arborist. And I always say Red EFT, and a lot of people do arborist. And he's an arborist, not just a tree guy. So he knows all things plants, trees. He's fantastic. If you got a tree leaning over and you need to get that taken care of, he can take it down without any problems, clean up the mess, and you'll never know that he was there. And he does it at a very cost-effective manner. But apparently, EFT, which I've been saying, is really Red Eft. And so that is because
Hmm.
eft is a red salamander, and it has a particular name. So my apologies to Andrew because he never really corrected me. He's allowed us to go ahead and talk about that. So for all those listeners out there, eft is the name, and you can look it up. Red salamander. One of the deputies corrected me yesterday. Thank you for that. I want to make sure we're
I
all
did
correct.
not know that.
Yes, me either. It
Salamander.
was quite an education. So,
Huh.
and we want to also shout out to the VFW and American Legion, Chardon, Middlefield, for helping to keep this program going and online. Anybody else that wants to join in, we need sponsors to keep this program live on 101.5 Wint Radio and 1330 AM. And of course, as we said, we're streaming live to Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube, and I can see our audience on Rumble showing up this morning. So, with all that said, I have one other comment real quick. Jonathan, yesterday I attended the county commissioner meeting, and two people stood up. It was quite an interesting meeting. We had two people stand up and ask Mr. Jim Dvorak to resign. Um,
Oh.
One person stood up and was um, beating up on Nowaka and asking when Nowaka was going to do the right thing. There was a county commissioner from Lake County that came that talked about data centers, one of our favorite topics. Or he was actually asked a question about data centers. Would he support that? But he was also there to talk about Nowaka because he tends to support Nowaka. So, and
That seems inappropriate.
he
Why
and
is he in Geauga County? Why is he talking here?
well, that's something that people can go listen to the video of the meeting. He and Ralph had some interesting words, and so I'm going to suggest that we get the two people that showed up. Actually, it was three people that showed up. Mr. Bill Coons out of South Russell showed up to support Mr. Dvorak and said nice things about him. Said he was a nice guy and so forth. But I think we should get the two guests on here next week. I don't know if they'd be interested in coming, who asked Jim to resign just to explore more about what their thinking is on that. And it might be an interesting show. We can even get Mr. Bill Coons on, maybe on not on the same program, but on a different program, and we can talk about his viewpoint on things. But with that said, that would make for some lively discussion, I'm absolutely sure. But with that said, Jonathan, Mr. Judge Engler is quite an interesting guy, and I know he's going to want to talk about the lawsuit that he filed, and I know
He's up
that
to big things.
it's a big thing. It's huge, and that's something that you would be a big support of because it all has to do with parental rights. And anybody who's out there listening, I know that there's some liberal Democrats out there that don't believe in parental rights because we passed this constitutional amendment in Ohio to damage parental rights. But if you have an interest in calling into this program and object to what I just said, if you're a liberal and you object to what I just said, call 440-946-9468. We'd love to hear from you. We want to hear from everybody. And we had some guy yesterday on Facebook who was throwing up all over our program, but he wouldn't comment why. So all that said, I'm going to shut
He
up.
just left an emoji.
That's right. I'm going to flip it over. Jonathan, you can say a few words and then introduce Mr. Judge Engler.
Well, I'm going to keep it very brief because I'm very interested in what Judge Engler has to say. But I'm all for it. Anything that reclaims ground in parental rights, I'm all for it. So, Judge, tell us about what you're up to.
Well, thank you, and good morning to both of you. It's very great to be back on Voice of Geauga. What a great opportunity. And the lawsuit. Last Wednesday, I filed what is clearly the most important parental rights lawsuit in the state's history. It was filed Wednesday. And it's unique because I'm a lawyer, right? But I'm a judge. And as a judge, you can't be a lawyer anymore. However, in this one instance, I can be a lawyer. I'm currently representing myself. There's some other large law firms who are probably going to jump in and take over the representation. But this is how it transpired. Okay, so I'm up at the and it's because I'm running for 11th District Court of Appeals, and as a candidate for 11th District Court of Appeals, I was invited up to the Bring America Back to Life conference in Cleveland on the weekend of March 12th, March 13th. And so I was up there and I was being asked by the selection committee or the interview committee for Right to Life Action Coalition of Ohio. What are the important issues facing the judicial branch, particularly the appellate branch, the Supreme Court? And I indicated, what my thoughts were, and I also suggested to them that the use of AI is critically important, and it's changing everything about being a judge and being a lawyer. It's already happening. It's happening on a daily basis. In my courtroom, we sometimes get swamped with pro se or people representing themselves filing their own. I have one fellow who's filed 30 different motions. It's overwhelming how to deal with people who have the ability just to talk into their phone and come up with a pleading that might be accurate, might not be accurate, but we have to deal with it. Long story short, I tell the group I'm talking to, I said, let me see if there's anyone that has the ability to challenge the 2023 abortion amendment that was passed in Ohio in November of 2023. I'm curious as to how it particularly affects parents' rights. So as I'm doing the research, and I've had a couple technology companies I've owned in the past, developed them, sold them, along with being a lawyer for 40 years. And it comes out that there are 110 people in Ohio who have standing to bring an action. 100, and having standing, that's an important distinction. Standing is mean, do you really have the ability to go to the judge, to the court, and say, "Hey, I want to be heard about my concern." Of those 110 people, and I'm doing the research, it's me. It's me as the juvenile court judge has standing to file a lawsuit in the state of Ohio on this one particular issue. And it's all about the safety of children and the rights for parents to be a parent. Let me break it down. So, there was something called judicial bypass. That's what myself as a juvenile court judges across the state, in your county, Geauga County, Judge Gardell would have done these. If a minor wanted to have an abortion, but did not, for whatever reason, want to have their parents' consent or involvement because it's a medical procedure, right? They would go to the juvenile court judge. The juvenile court judge would almost always appoint a guardian ad litem to interview the child, make sure the child wasn't being pressured by someone, the child had was mature enough to make a decision with the facts and circumstances. Maybe it was an abusive parental situation. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes until that young girl would come in front of you as a judge. Now, it was all confidential, and the title of the actions were all Jane Doe's. Okay, so there wasn't any names used. Confidentiality was protected. And judges throughout Ohio, regardless of what our personal beliefs about the issue of abortion might be, we made that decision all the time. In Trumbull County, it was 2, 3 a year, but in the bigger counties more. In Ohio last year, there were 600 minors who had an abortion in the state, so it's not an insignificant number. But we no longer do those judicial bypasses. I never see them anymore. They do not come to our courts.
We've
And the
got about
reason is
30
this.
seconds, Jonathan.
Yep, we're coming up on a break.
Yeah, this is it. Go ahead, guys.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll take us into the break. When we come back, we're going to continue that conversation. Remember, you can join this conversation with Judge Engler on Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube, or call in 440-946-9468. We'll come back with more on the other side of the break.
Geauga, he just do what he please.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
All right, so we can continue the conversation. We are still live on the podcast side. So people on Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube can hear this conversation if you're there. By the way, what you're hearing now is a little behind the scenes discussion during the radio break. We are on commercial break on the radio side of Voice of Geauga. So Judge Engler, I always like to ask the question during breaks. Is there anything that you would like to make sure that we cover during today's conversation?
Yeah, I think it's important, particularly the Cleveland Plain Dealer had some coverage of my lawsuit, and they go to an abortion provider, abortion proponent, which makes sense to ask for opinion. They don't call me. They said they tried to, but then the other person they talked to is this Jesse Hill, a professor at Case Western Reserve, who then sort of trashes my lawsuit as if she's an independent person. Well, as it turns out, her whole job is supporting abortion. That's her job at this at Case Western Reserve School of Law, where I went to school. And she's the ACLU attorney that argues in favor of, they call it reproductive rights.
Oh, gosh.
But they quote her like she's like a learned scholar. She's just a one-sided advocate. It's like going to ask talking to the terrorist and saying like, the terrorist says, I didn't kill anyone, it was the bomb that did it, and they go to ask her opinion, and the plain dealer's like doesn't think anything of it. Of literally
You're not surprised by that, are you, Judge?
well
30 seconds. 30
Yeah.
seconds.
Seriously, it's the plain dealer.
Right. Oh my goodness. it was
Plain
awful.
dealer is anything. It's a little bit like the League of Women Voters. By the way, we're going to have a person who used to be on the League of Women Voters in our program tomorrow, and she's 90 years
10
old.
Seconds,
One
10
of the,
seconds.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool, myself, Jonathan Broadbent, and we have returning guest, Judge David Engler. I'm going to throw a curveball into the conversation, and this is the encouragement that anybody that decides as a result of today's conversation that you want to back and follow this initiative that Judge Engler has put forward, this lawsuit to try to regain parental rights. A big part of this revolves around abortion, which we know, unfortunately, in my book, unfortunately passed in the state of Ohio. I want to encourage people to think about the impact of abortion. It's come up regularly in conservative discussion that abortion disproportionately targets Black America. There are people who make the argument that it is effectively a genocide, that Black America has and continues to be targeted by the abortion industry. So I'm putting that out there in today's conversation because I think there are great advocates in Black religious community. You find Black preachers and ministers, and I think we have some big advocates. I don't know if you'll take that as a suggestion, Judge Engler, but I'm throwing it into today's discussion because I'm hopeful that a lot of people rally behind what you're doing.
Is
Let's
there
continue
a
where we
way,
left off.
Judge, for us to follow this case so people can watch it and support it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
great question.
it's you can go to the Ohio Supreme Court website and put in David Engler, Engler, and it pops up. You could follow the court right from the court's website, and they have a manner on the Ohio Supreme Court's website where you can say, please give updates, and you'll get an email update if there's any filing in that case. So it's a really convenient way. You know, reporters do that all the time. They'll go to the Supreme Court, put their name in that they want to receive notifications when there's a filing or an action in a particular case. And this is the most important parental rights case in Ohio's history.
It is.
It really is. Because what happened as a result of my research and me losing my ability to do a judicial bypass, I don't do it anymore. The reason I don't do judicial bypasses anymore is because parental rights were eliminated. They were flat out eliminated. So today in Ohio, your 15-year-old daughter needs your permission to have a tattoo. That same 15-year-old daughter does not need your permission to have an abortion. And so you create this really crazy situation where a sex trafficker can take their 15-year-old victim to an abortion provider, have an abortion, cover up the crime, get her back out on the streets making money. Or a pedophile can do the same thing. And we cannot be so naive. And I'm a juvenile court judge, and I know terrible things that people will do to kids. The type of pain and harm that adults will inflict upon children is horrendous. And to think it's not going to happen in Ohio this week, someplace, it is. It will happen. To me, it's an issue of the safety of children. That's literally the job I signed up to do as a juvenile court judge here in Trumbull County, is to look out for the welfare and safety of all the children.
So,
I know they're not safe.
so
It's
Judge,
awful. It's terrible.
let me jump here, and I'm sorry for interrupting because
Sure.
we could make this whole talk about that case, which is tremendously important, and everybody should follow it and support you and support this case. But more importantly, I want to point out to people there's only one judge in the state of Ohio that has taken this on and seen the legal avenue to be able to do this. So he understands the law, number one, and has the gumption. I mean, I am so disappointed in so many of our elected officials who sit there and they know what's right and they don't do what's right. We have people who are down in Columbus right now, and they cater to the tribe that they're in, and they kind of give in on their convictions. Judge, I respect you greatly for your willingness to put yourself out there. Number one, for your knowledge, and you're a smart judge. But it's important for people to know you are running for the appeals court, and that appeals court in the 11th district is so important to all of us because cases that go from the common pleas go to the appeals court if you get treated improperly at the common pleas level, and hopefully it will end there with a good ruling and not have to go to the Supreme Court. But that appeals court a position which you're running for is so important. We need good people like you in that position, and I want to applaud you and endorse you. I haven't talked to your opponent. I know only from what I can read and discern what your opponent is about, but I know you. I've met you. I've talked to you, and we've had some conversations about what you think, and I respect you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and yeah, I'm also happy that that I'm trying to fill the seat of Judge Matt Lynch, Geauga County native, who is retiring. You age out, right? At age seven, after age 70, you can't run again. So Matt Lynch cannot run again. But I'm really pleased to have his support. Matt Lynch is very supportive of me. Would say that I would make an excellent judge, and thinks that I would carry on the same type of conservative uh, perspective that Judge Lynch has taken to that bench. And really, it's been Judge Matt Lynch who turned that bench, the 11th District Court of Appeals, Lake County, Ashtabula, Geauga, Portage, and Trumbull County, from a Democrat-dominated organization to one that has only Republicans. And it was Matt Lynch who made that happen. Diane Grandel before Matt Lynch. So they were pioneers. So I appreciate the support, and I'm getting my butt kicked on social media. Most people are very supportive, but it's wild the things people say
Oh, they'll
because
swarm on social media.
oh my goodness. All I'm doing is I'm talking about, look, parents have the right to be parents. And
Yeah.
I'm going to make a really important point. Now, for all of you legal eagles out there, and for the two of you as well, understand this. There's a principle called the Martens issue, Martens, in Ohio law. It means that there are certain inalienable rights that are so important. They're not conferred to us by the Ohio Constitution, but they are recognized by the Ohio Constitution. They cannot be taken away by a constitutional amendment. They're so important, even a constitutional amendment can't take those rights away. And the right that I'm talking about is parental rights. It's
Yep.
so fundamental, it can't be taken away even by a vote of the people. Because you're going against mob rule at that point in time. Say, oh sure, let's pass an amendment that makes parents less than parents. And there's this woman from Case Western Reserve who was in the Plain Dealer a couple days ago, attacking my lawsuit, and the Plain Dealer was interviewing her as if she was some neutral bystander when she's the ACLU attorney that was promoting the abortion amendment in 2023 and actually saying parents shouldn't consent. You don't have to have parental consent. She said that, and now a couple days ago she's saying the opposite.
It's crazy what's
I
going
was
on out
going to
there.
bring that up. That Plain Dealer has piled on. They're among the attack mob swarming you, and it's to me, my lens has changed in life. When I see somebody running for office or a bench who suddenly gets the far left in an uproar into attack mode, it tells me that's a good person trying to do good things. That hit piece. Well, I won't go so far as to call it a hit piece, but it was a schlock job. The Plain Dealer really again disappointed with that article, and to have picked. I think you said her name is Jessie Hill.
Correct.
That to picked her and let that is not a neutral position to quote in a newspaper article. Or if you're picking somebody for a newspaper article, for by all means have somebody with a definitive position. They've dug their heels in and they feel strongly about something. But find a counterpoint. Find somebody with the opposing viewpoint and the counter argument to create balance. The Plain Dealer fails consistently in that regard. It's unfortunate.
And I would love for your listeners and viewers to actually reach out to the Plain Dealer and say, look, don't pass that off as journalism. You
Right.
went to the person who is absolutely her entire career is fashioned, and she makes her money on being in favor of abortion. She works for a thing called the Reproductive Freedom Initiative at Case Western Reserve University. She was the ACLU attorney on abortion issues. The ACLU was one of the major funders of the 2023 abortion amendment, and they go to her for an opinion. You know, I said it's like going to the terrorists and the terrorists saying, "Well, it wasn't me that killed the people; it was the bomb." Why are you asking me? You know,
That's
come on. You know, be fair, Plain Dealer. I'm very disappointed in them.
That's an
Hey,
unfortunately appropriate analogy. And I'm going to pause to interject that you are in a contested race. And once again, I want to emphasize that Voice of Geauga is also open to Judge Engler's opponent. If she would like to come and join us on this show, she can have her own dedicated program. That's how we roll here at Voice of Geauga, including some of the other people that periodically come up. So back to focusing on you, Judge Engler. You were talking about Ohio, and bear with us here. I think we may be working on an issue with our timer, our countdown for the break. I may have to hop off at a moment's notice, as we should be coming up on a break any moment. But it's my understanding, Judge Engler, that Ohio is somewhere around number 4 in child trafficking. So it's 4, or sometimes you hear 5, 6, or 7. But so either way, we are very far up there, unfortunately, as a state in human trafficking and child sex trafficking. In that environment, to reverse parental rights and to allow people, bad actors, like you said, that are able to take minors in and get an abortion and cover up crimes. That sounds like just adding horror on top of an already bad situation.
And they want to take it, the opponents, I'm talking about parental rights. That's my job, to protect kids in troubled
Judge
families.
Engler, I'm sorry to step in. We are having some issues with our countdown timer. We need to go to break. We're going to come back with more with Judge Engler on the other side of the break.
Working on that issue now. I found the fix, so it'll look right the next time up. It's gonna keep counting down like that for a while, so I got that. So it'll be fixed the next time around.
Okay.
I was at the Portage County Tea Party event last night. Great reception, fantastic reception. But you know who I was really blown away by was Marcel Sturbridge.
Yeah.
Honest to goodness, what a dynamic speaker. Understands the issues of being a Secretary of State. And if people wanted to you know dislodge the establishment in Columbus, he's the vote. I mean, because he's a vote for, like, no, we don't want to do things the way the Republican hierarchy.
Establishment status.
No,
Oh, my
too many people are
goodness.
just hopping from chair to chair down in Columbus, and they're mediocre candidates at best. And
No,
Marcel
actually,
brings a refreshing view. So for anybody that's listening, I don't know if anybody supports his opponent, but I've known both of them. I talked to both of them, and Marcel is head and shoulders from a conservative bona fides standpoint, head and shoulders above. When we come back, why don't we talk about the appeals court judge and your qualifications over your opponent and what you think is important in the appeals court?
okay.
No, I was also just before the break. Let's wrap up with the issue of Ohio and where we stand in child trafficking and sex trafficking. It's unfortunate, but I think that people need to understand that, especially here in Geauga, there may be kind of a bubble. Skip refers to it as a bubble, but there are plaguing issues all throughout the state of Ohio, and if we don't acknowledge them, we can't address them.
Well, the
No,
judge
that's
isn't going to fix child trafficking. I mean, I agree with you 100%, and child trafficking is terrible.
I'm not
But
asking him to fix it. I'm asking to discuss how unfortunate it is that Ohio is ranked somewhere around fourth for child trafficking.
well, when you take parents out of the equation, when you really go after parents and you take them away from the kids, and then one of the most important decision your 15-year-old daughter or 14-year-old daughter or 16-year-old daughter could be making, well, then you're setting the stage. You're absolutely destroying the whole idea of family. And you can't get to communism with family in the way. I said it at my event that I had a few weeks ago, but that's part of the reason why Ohio ranks as high as it does in terms of trafficking. And abortions also, Ohio's number fifth in the country, 25,000 abortions. We are an abortion destination now. And the same reason Amazon wants to locate here is the same reason traffickers are involved here. We're midway between Chicago and New York, and Detroit and Pittsburgh, and Cleveland and Pittsburgh is, my hometown here, Warren. So it's a place to
30
traffic
seconds.
kids.
30 seconds.
I hate to say it, I'm sorry, but the old adage that Black America is the petri dish of bad ideas for communism, AFDC, Aid to Families with Dependent Children, split up Black homes in the 1960s and 70s. It targeted Black men, separated them, and the mayhem that's ensued and destruction followed, and it spread from there. That's the target of the left.
10 seconds. 10
Breaking.
seconds.
Can't be like the
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool, myself, Jonathan Broadbent, and returning guest, Judge David Engler. Before we went to break, I was interjecting that that Ohio ranks somewhere around fourth for child sex trafficking, human trafficking. My reason for bringing that up is not to drag around the doom and gloom, but to spotlight issues, because if we don't address them, if we don't talk about them, we can't address them. And during the break, Judge Engler had some interesting things to say about that and what happens if you take away parental rights. Let's continue where we left off before the break. Judge Engler?
Thank you. A huge problem is when you take parents out of the equation. When your 15-year-old daughter needs your permission for a tattoo, but not an abortion, we have a problem. There is a significant problem in Ohio, the way our laws are constituted. And I used to think it might be accidental that the left was promulgating such ideas, but I think it's completely intentional. I think the idea is to try to destroy the family structure, because you can't get to communism with the family in the way. So this amendment got rid of parents and children. And here's a story about parents' rights. In California, there was is a school teacher named Mirabelli. But in California, so the assembly gets together and say, I have a great idea. Let's pass a law that makes it illegal for for a teacher, a guidance counselor, or administrator to tell a parent that their 13-year-old daughter wants to be referred to as little boy today, that she's going through a mental health crisis. And the rest of the state assembly in California said, great idea, let's pass it. Let's make it illegal for teachers to talk to parents. And so they passed it. And then a teacher named Mirabelli files a lawsuit and goes to the San Diego Federal District Court. The San Diego Federal District Court says it was the trifecta of harm. You're causing teachers to lie to parents. You're taking parents away from their kids at a very critical time. And most importantly, for kids, you're taking away the person or persons that love them the most. They provide the counsel and wisdom that has been there throughout the history of time, right?
Yep.
And the judge overrules it. Okay, turns it down, gets rid of the law. Of course, it goes up to the Ninth District, and the Ninth District turns it back again. March 2nd, just last month, in the United States Supreme Court, the law firm took the teacher from California and won it. The Supreme Court of the United States said being a parent is a fundamental right. You can't screw around with it. California, stay out of the business of regulating the relationship between parents and their kids. Leave it up to parents. It's the same issue that I'm fighting right here in Ohio. And I was so honored that lawyer involved in the Mirabelli case was on the phone with me, talking about my lawsuit and saying, hey, Judge, you're on the right path. Keep going, man. And I hope
Good.
that his firm or other firms will come in and say, all right, we'll give you a break, Judge Engler, and take the ball from here. I've done all the heavy lifting. I really don't want to represent myself. I'd rather someone, maybe one of your listeners is a lawyer and wants to jump in and help me out. I've done all the work. I'd welcome it.
So, Judge, how
Beautiful.
does this get impacted once you get, hopefully, assuming you get elected um, to the appeals court? How would your case proceed? Can you still work on that case as an appeal court judge?
I do not know that. I would doubt it that I could. I hope that the case is resolved by then, because and one of the things that Plain Dealer said, because the abortion proponents indicated, well, Engler's running for 11th District Court of Appeals. This is just an issue of he wants to get some publicity while he's running for office. Well, the reason I discovered this was because I was running for office. And if you find something, to both of you, if you find something that says, whoa, kids are at danger, I could do something about it. Do I wait till after the election to file something? Do I hold back when I know that I have a litigation or a lawsuit that actually can protect children?
So
And
other
importantly,
probate
you have standing.
I
other
have standing.
other juvenile court judges could join this case, and
Correct.
you could all jointly then pursue this. So if you got elected to the appeals court, of course, you probably would have to recuse yourself if it ever went to the appeals court. But that aside, you could be joined. So if there's a juvenile court judge out there who has an interest in defending parental rights, let me reach out to Judge Engler because he could use your help in pulling on the oars. Now, we're speaking to northeastern Ohio, to Geauga County and Lake County. So, Lake County juvenile court judge. I'm not sure where you are on all this, but I'm going to suggest you reach out to Judge Engler. But I want to hear, Judge, you're running for appeals court, and I know our listeners out there are interested what that means and why you're the best candidate. So can you go talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, the appeals court is really for most everybody the court of last resort in Ohio. Um, the very few cases make it up to the Ohio Supreme Court. Like the case I just filed last week was called an original action, which was filed in the Ohio Supreme Court because we're dealing with a constitutional issue that affects my job as a judge. Um, but for most of every criminal case, you have an automatic appeal to the Court of Appeals if whatever the criminal case issue was, it goes up to the Court of Appeals. Every civil case, if you lose your civil case, say it's a contract action or it's a tort action, meaning someone was injured as a result of someone's negligence, all of those cases, you have the right to get to the Court of Appeals. Once you get beyond the Court of Appeals, there's not necessarily a right to go to the Supreme Court unless there's a significant controversy or it involves a constitutional issue. So, it's the judges at this Court of Appeals level who are going to set the law, interpret the law for certainly all of the 11th district, but our decisions, my decisions are going to have an impact upon the law of the rest of Ohio. So you've got to know who's on that bench, what's their experience, what's their perspectives for so many years. And this is I appreciate you asking me. So many years in Ohio, there was it's as if you didn't want to know who your judges were. You didn't want to know their party affiliation. You didn't want to know if they were a strong Christian. You didn't want to know what their position was on right to life or Second Amendment, because the judge would, well, the issue might come before me, so I can't say anything. Well, that's all gone now. It used to be we'd elect judges at the Court of Appeals level. No one knew who the heck we were, and they still don't really know who we are. But you would elect them on, hey, it's an Irish name. I like the sound of that Irish name, or it's an Italian name, or it's a woman or a man, or for some other reason other than what their qualifications were, because it's a low ID election. I have sought to change that process, certainly in 11th District Court of Appeals and throughout Ohio. So now the rules have changed. Where there's a party affiliation after my name, it's an R. Okay. I'm also allowed to tell people where I stand on the issues. I tell people, like, look, I think that the death penalty is appropriate and it should be used and used more often. At the same time, I say those things, I have to tell people I'm going to follow the constitutional laws in front of me. I'm not going to make decisions just about what I personally believe. I take an oath to follow the Constitution. But you, the voters, need to know where we stand. And you need to know that our backgrounds. I've been a lawyer for 40 years. I've been a constitutional litigator. I represented Boys to Men in a record deal. I represented the producer of Hot in Cleveland in several contract issues. The country's largest white collar criminal at one point in time, Mickey Moniz, the Farmore. So I've had such broad experience in so many areas of the law. I had the largest probate jury victory in maybe Ohio's history, but at least Trumbull County's history. I've done it all as a lawyer, and I have that broad expanse of experience to bring to the Court of Appeals. There's nothing I haven't seen as a lawyer, and there's no one on that bench, including the judges there now. Some of them are my friends that have the depth of experience that I bring to the court.
That is a really interesting case history. You covered all kinds of ground as a lawyer. That was one of the things I was wondering about earlier. In the appeals court, you have to sort of be prepared for virtually any kind of case.
Right.
Unlike sort of the narrow bandwidth of other uh, judges' benches, it really virtually anything could come before you, right?
Right.
And
And I've done it all: probate, criminal, civil litigation, administrative law, contract law. I've represented large corporations. The beautiful Avalon Grand Resort has been my client for many years. I've represented corporations, I've represented individuals, I've gone after pedophiles and organizations that supported the pedophiles, notably children's services, who failed to do their jobs quite often. I went after them as an attorney when a little boy named Teddy Foltz was murdered down in Mahoning County. I didn't stop until I got justice. Same thing up in Trumbull County. When I first did work, I used to be a Mahoning County commissioner, by the way, and I was a school board member for 22 years and a city councilman. In Trumbull County, my first bones were made up in Trumbull County because I went after the children's services because they allowed a little baby to be sexually molested by her pedophile father
oh,
at the children's services visitation room with a guy with a phone and his mentally disabled wife, and they left him alone to molest the child. And I went after them so hard and ferociously until I got the people fired. I got a change. Matter of fact, the
I'm
kid went
glad
off
you
the job.
did.
Yeah.
Judge, unfortunately, I need
Sure.
to step in. We're coming up on our third and final break. Remember, you can join us online, Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube, or join the conversation by calling into the station, WINT, at 440-946-9468. More on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
So, I filed a case with the appeals court, and it got flipped over to a visiting judge.
Oh, really?
I filed a case with the common pleas court, and nobody wants to take my cases. I'm not sure why, and it was flipped to a visiting judge. So I'm not sure why people can't represent somebody that they know. Actually, Judge Patterson doesn't even know me, but yet he flipped it to a visiting judge. So I'm watching the court process and wondering about the decisions that are made sometimes in the appeals court. Like, you get a hot potato case, and the judges don't want to handle it. So, and mine's not even a hot potato case. It's pretty straightforward. But
Yeah. I mean, I don't. You have to be careful that you do not do anything that even may indicate that that you're being biased, or it could lead to a biased result. But just knowing someone's not enough. Um, there has to be some real. I tell people, I'm going to be reluctant to recuse myself for just like some casual knowledge or understanding of somebody. I think it's important for a judge to actually understand where you come from, and coming from my part of Northeast Ohio, what makes us special are all the families that have made us a very successful community. The Cafaros and the Pavlises and the Millers and the all those groups, the Zoldens, people that have businesses, could have gone anywhere in the country, and they decided to stay here in Northeast Ohio and continue business. It's good to know. I'm not giving people a hometown pass, but I am going to say I understand that they were hardworking, patriotic Americans who made things work for themselves. And I do have a bit of a bias against unnecessary government interference. I've always didn't like.
30 seconds.
with you
30
there.
seconds.
Yeah. Let business be business.
so what are the bulks of the cases? We can ask this after we get in for break too. What are the majority of what does the court spend its time on? The majority. Is
Yeah.
it business cases, personal
10
cases, criminal?
seconds. 10 seconds.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool, myself, Jonathan Brentbent, and returning guest, Judge David Engler. Mark your calendars for tomorrow and Friday. We've got two more guests joining us before the weekends. We've got Frank Kavanaugh coming back on tomorrow morning. Frank Kavanaugh at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. And on Friday, we've got Janet Kramers joining us. You will want to join that conversation. Janet will be a first-time guest on Friday morning at 7.
Talking
So
about the League
back,
of Women Voters. So if you're in the League of Women Voters in Geauga County listening to this program, I know you are. Listen in on Friday. Janet was a longtime League of Women Voters person, no longer, and she's got some interesting things to say about the League of Women Voters. Frank Kavanaugh, by the way, does have an ad in the upcoming newspaper that's coming out, or an article,
an
not an
article,
ad,
right?
but he's got an article coming in, which people are going to find real interesting.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward. That last one from Frank was really good
And
in
by the
the
way,
newspaper.
while we're at it, and then we'll get back to the judge, just a shout out to Red Eft, the Red Salamander guy,
Yep,
and all
Red
the great
Salamander.
things that he does. And go by the VFW, buy a veteran a beer and the American Legion, and pat those guys on the back because they deserve it.
And the phone number for Red Eft is 440-850-4968. Get them to come out and take a look at your yard, see what they can do to help out. Coming back to our discussion before the break, we were talking about. Let's bring us back to the conversation. I'm skimming my notes vigorously right now. What were we talking about before the break? I'm partly distracted
So
because
I
we had
had
some great
asked
conversation
in the
during the break.
in the break, I had asked the judge the bulk of the cases that the appeal court handles. Is it, child cases? Is it criminal law? Is it, what is the
Good
majority of
question.
things the appeals court
Yeah,
handles?
it's probably the largest segment of the cases because you have an automatic right to appeal on your criminal cases. So the biggest bulk are going to be criminal cases. Like I saw a case came out of the 11th district, and for a lawyer, I mean, we're interested in these things where they threw down or they overturned a municipal court judge, a traffic court judge, or a lower level court judge who refused to dismiss a case where the city prosecutor said they didn't want to go forward, they didn't think they have enough evidence. The judge in that case, is the city of Warren judge, decided that she overruled the prosecutor, okay, and said she refused to dismiss the case, even though the prosecutor said they wanted to dismiss the case because they didn't have enough evidence. The judge said no, refused to have it dismissed, and made it go forward with the trial and a hearing. You know, and it goes up to the 11th district. They didn't go through the trial here, but it goes up to the 11th District Court of Appeals. The 11th District Court of Appeals says, Judge, stay in your lane. That's a separation of powers. A prosecutor, you're not a prosecutor, you're a judge. As a judge, if a prosecutor comes to you and says, we're dismissing it because we don't think we have enough evidence to proceed, you got to let the prosecutor be a prosecutor. You don't do a separate investigation to determine, well, I think maybe a jury may determine that this person's guilty or not. That was a cool, for lawyers and judges, issue to say, like, judge, be a judge, prosecutors are prosecutors. It's a separation of power issue.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting issue. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's surprising. I've not heard of something like that. That's got to be uncommon.
It's it should be uncommon. I've seen it happen before, because I've been doing it so long, where a judge, starts to act like a prosecutor. And if you're a defense attorney, you're going in front of a judge, you're thinking like, I got to fight against the prosecutor and the second prosecutor, which is like a judge. We have to be fair and just call balls and strikes. I say that all the time in my courtroom. That's my job. I just have to be fair and impartial and listen to both sides, and give people an idea that their case is important to me and they're not going to get a biased result. That's what a good judge should do.
Listening to you, there's an element of the conversation, your tone, and the positions that you take, the way that you talk, that's refreshing.
Thank you.
I haven't had opportunity to get to know Judge Matt Lynch well. I've talked to him a handful of times, but the sense that I get is that he's very much a real person, and he's very willing to talk to you about issues and subjects and topics. And I get really no politician vibe from Judge Lynch. And the same is true with you. I'm not meaning to disparage anyone in particular, but there are people, and I've, through my career and through my lifetime, have had opportunity to speak with lots of people, including many people who've run for Ohio Supreme Court. And every once in a while, one comes along that just seems like a real person you can just talk to. A lot of them come across as politician. That, I hope, is part of that trend that you were outlining that started really regionally with Judge Lynch, where it's okay to be a person and have viewpoints and have a breadth of human experience and talk about those things. I personally think that's important, especially for those of us who may not know the legal system well. It makes it more approachable, I think.
And you see Judge Matt Lynch, even to this day. I mean, he doesn't have to run for reelection, but Judge Matt Lynch will be out at so many different events. It's not just a political event. He'll be everywhere. He talks to anybody.
Yeah.
He actually continues to go table to table. I've looked at this guy. Now he's over 70, but he doesn't slow down. He views it as, I think he views it as part of his job, is actually to talk to people and see what's going on in the world out there and in the lives of the people of Geauga County and Lake County and Ashtabula and Trumbull. So he's got his ear to the ground. He really does. And I would, and I said this in one of my ads. I said if I could be half the Judge Lynch would be, I'd be a fantastic, do a fantastic job. He really is a role model for me in terms of how I'd like to do this job.
So
Yeah, that's
did he talk to you about growing a little pigtail in the back of your head?
I don't
So.
even have that much hair, so I wish I could grow a little pigtail. I don't even have that much hair.
Yeah, Judge
It's
Lynch is quite the character that way. So it's almost like
it's
he's grown his own white powdered wig when he's sitting on the court. So, but
he's a legend.
but he is quite the legal scholar, though. I will tell you,
Oh,
he's very knowledgeable,
absolutely.
very knowledgeable.
yeah, that element of continuing to keep an ear to the ground and not be, what's the expression that I use in the political races, the balcony class. There are
Oh,
many people that, and I hate to say it, unfortunately, in the legal profession that achieve a bench somewhere that begin to view themselves as somehow holier than thou, and they don't want to interact with the peasants. And I'm exaggerating this for a reason. Matt Lynch and in our series of discussions over the last couple of months that it's been since I first met you, you strike me the same way. You're very involved in humanity and the human experience and learning about people. And that, I have to imagine, manifests on the bench because it gives you a broader breadth of understanding of the various types of people that you're going to be interacting with.
Well,
well, thank you.
and to that point, I went to one of Judge.
Geauga, we greatly appreciate your time and your discussing with us the progress that you're making in your campaign and your legal action. So, you could say once again before we wrap up, where can people go to find more about you? You have a webpage, right?
I do. On Facebook, David Engler for Court of Appeals, Ohio Court of Appeals.
And with that,
ENGLER.
ENGLER. With that, I believe we're out of time. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody, for tuning in to Voice of Geauga.